Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Demand Podcast. I am your host, Jonathan, the co-founder of Omni Lab, and today I am joined by a good friend of mine, Colin White, who's the head of demand gen at Clearbit, and we've talked a whole bunch of times over LinkedIn and all sorts of things, and we really love what they're doing from a creative standpoint. So we thought we would get into all the juicy details and what they're doing with their ad creative on paid social channels, particularly like Facebook and LinkedIn, and have Colin break that down. So anyway, welcome to the show, Colin.
Thanks, Jonathan. Nice to be here.
Cool. So I think I always start here, as many podcasts do, but I think it's always good to know that for some that don't know Clearbit, which I'd be surprised if a marketer didn't, but if they didn't know you guys, what does Clearbit do, and ultimately who are you guys marketing to?
Yeah, Clearbit is now a data activation platform. We actually just have started to swap up a lot of what we're doing. So you're going to see a lot of changes. I think Clearbit started out as an API first data enrichment company, and over the last years, we've basically followed around our customers, like our best fit customers, and seen what they've done with our products, and then started to build those into products that other people can actually go out and use. So we help companies, optimize through their entire funnel, all the way from advertising through to closed won, using data enrichment.
Yeah, love it. And then obviously, clearly, you guys are marketing to marketers predominantly. That's the key people that you guys are sending ads to, right?
We do have the lucky job of marketing to ourselves.
It's lovely. So fun.
Demand gen professionals. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun, actually. It is a lot of fun.
It makes it a lot easier, especially when you're, because it's a different story when you're at a big manufacturing company and you're doing demand gen and you know nothing about the audience. You haven't done their job before and you don't know what it's like. Yep. And then you've got to work with an SME or someone that really knows what they're doing. So some challenges.
It's really so nice to be able to create something and look at it and say, like, would I click on that?
Yeah.
Or, would I read that article? Would I go to that webinar? Totally. Would I want to consume anything that we're creating?
Totally.
And that really should be like, that's our standard.
Yep.
It's the standard of the content we're producing. It is, would I get value?
Right.
And if so, then we're good,
100%. Love it. Well, let's start with one thing. So obviously we're going to get into creative like we were chatting about before. I think the big thing that I want to get into, and maybe to kind of kick things off, there's just a few words about it, but I think for a lot of B2B SaaS brands, there's a lot of focus on all other areas of the demand gen funnel, if you will. But a lot of times creative ends up getting it's a forgotten thing. It's like, hey, just get something up there. I don't really care exactly what it is. Just, put a background on it and some words on the creative and let it fly. And I think that there's a big missed opportunity there, because we all know that, especially in platforms like LinkedIn and Facebook that are stimulus driven, great creative is what makes you actually stand out. We actually have to attract attention and get people to notice us on our creative first. And then two, ultimately have a message that really connects with the buyer. And I think that, like I was saying before, there's at least been 3 or 4 people recently that have said like, wow, Clearbit's doing an awesome job with their creative. And I know you guys have a really small team. So I think it'd be interesting for us to kind of break that down. But I think a question that I'd like to kind of pose is, what are you seeing more broadly, or maybe within Clearbit specifically, either or, that people should literally stop doing right now with respects to ad creative that you see out there, either on LinkedIn or Facebook? Is there anything that you see that's just like a big no, like you need to stop this immediately?
The 3D book with the title of your ebook on it as an ad.
I love that.
Like, Stop it.
Well, so why? Why? What's your reasoning behind that? I'm with you.
It's just it's boring, man. Like, it's boring. I think, like you said, people sometimes think of design as a cost center versus something that is absolutely necessary to the performance of your advertising. I think you think of like the levers of advertising. It really is like offer creative targeting. That's what you got. That's what you got to work with. Of course, down funnel impact, there's definitely more things you need to do, but to actually get someone to click on an ad, you have kind of three layers of targeting, or 3 layers of levers to actually move. And if you're totally ignoring one of them, like, that's just, it's not going to work,
100%.
So
100%. No, I totally agree. I think the offer is critical. And you and I were talking about that, I think, earlier too on LinkedIn, that the offer is really what makes, that person say, yes, I'd like to learn more about whatever this piece of content's saying, or, If it's something lower funnel where you're trying to drive a demo, like that's the offer, or maybe it's a template or something they can use practically, whatever it is, like that's ultimately what it is. And I think we talked about webinars now that I'm kind of catching my memory here with webinars,
Yep.
thinking about, all right, well, my CPA is really high. I mean, we're trying to push this webinar out on paid media. Like, why isn't it working? Why aren't we getting leads? And a lot of it, as you were saying, maybe you can comment on this a little bit, because you guys have seen some interesting things with regards to different cost per leads, with regards to pushing out webinars and driving registrations, where some of them are driving, I mean, the CPLs are way higher and others are way lower. And a lot of that, you were saying, I think depends on really the speaker and what the content's about. But I'd be curious to kind of get your thoughts.
Speaker,
yeah.
That's exactly it. Speaker, topic, brand name, pretty much that what you would consider the offer of your webinar, right? Of your event. It's going to be the same when you look at ebook content or templates or what have you. A lot of it comes down to just what is that offer for folks, and then how do you present it? I think again, like, speaking directly to the creative, you really need to make sure that the thing that is the hook of the offer comes through very, very quickly on especially on social channels, right? And even more important on something like a Facebook or an Instagram, where really, like, engagement is fleeting. How many ads do you see on Facebook and Instagram? I know there's a stat out there, but hundreds a day, and you really need to capture attention like in a quick second.
Yeah. Right? That's actually it's a really good transition. So, I mean, like, how do you do that though? I mean, how do you create engaging creative? Like for you guys at Clearbit, for example, I think a lot of your content and creative people would say is really good, but I mean, how do you create a good hook? What makes a good hook for creative?
I think for us, again, we're really lucky. We market to ourselves, so we generally have a good sense of what is good.
Yep.
But I do think that it ends up starting with your buyer, right? Like, what are they actually interested in? That's how you have to start with creating content, events, webinars, whatever you're actually producing. And then on the creative side, like, I think your ads, they can't just be words on an image or words in a headline with nothing else.
Yep.
We generally follow a couple rules at Clearbit when it comes to advertising. First thing, every ad should generally be a story. It shouldn't just be, the title of the book or whatever. That's not going to work. It should be a story. You should only focus on one specific point, one specific value prop for each ad. Don't try and put TMI in your advertising. And then, I think the true success that we have comes from really ingraining our designers inside our marketing team. So we have a couple designers on staff with us. They sit with the marketing team. They're in every meeting. They come to campaign planning or campaign brainstorming.
Yep.
They aren't thought as an afterthought. After, you've written the book, after you've, written the brief for the webinar and done everything, and then you just kind of throw it over the fence, right? They're really there to help us get the information that we want to get across out the door and onto these platforms.
I like what you said. I think the three, just to kind of repeat it, are you have to understand what your buyer is actually interested in, right? Making sure that you've detailed what are their wants, pains, desires, what are those things that they're interested in learning more about, and be very clear on what those are. And then the second one, which I really like, that we see and we try to do a lot with all of our ads, is every ad should tell a story. And I think the important thing behind that too is, 98% of people are not clicking through on your ad. But there are thousands of people that are getting impressions on your ad that may just click through the carousel, et cetera. So to your exact point, make sure you're not just marketing to the people that are actually clicking on your ad and going through. So to your point, not just a headline with a picture, a fancy background with a gradient on it, and expecting them to kind of come to your page, but make sure that they can still get most of the message, right? Whatever the core message you're trying to deliver, they can get that in the channel. So I think that's a really good one. And then the other thing, I definitely see this too, is an issue where everyone wants to say everything. It's like, well, no, we want to be kind of everything. We do all these things, right? We've got all these cool features. We've got all these cool things we want to say. And it's like, okay, cool. We can break that up, but we can't put it all into one single message. And what I'll see a lot of times is people trying to find a message that somehow encapsulates everything. And then what you get is a watered down broad message that no one really knows what you actually do and understand. So I think those three, just to repeat them back to you, are super important.
Yeah,
So
and if you are coming from a company that has multiple product lines or a broad offering, and Clearbit does, to be totally honest, we hit a bunch of personas. We have a lot of products and a lot of use cases. Like don't feel like you need to try and hit your entire messaging in your ad creative. Really, as a job from the advertising side, like our job is to get that first click and to get someone to a landing page and to get someone to convert off that. And if you're trying to be generic with what your entire company does in your ad creative, it's not going to work.
yep.
Focus on a single value prop, and then try and get folks through to the page so that you can educate them more after that click.
I love
Right.
it. Well, that actually leads me to one thing that I wanted to ask you about. And we talked about this, I think, months ago or something. But you guys actually, from what I recall, focus on marketing predominantly, like really one or two of the five, I believe, products that Clearbit has. And I think it's interesting to maybe, if I'm remembering that correctly, to kind of dive into that a little bit. And in terms of companies that do have multiple product offerings and how they should think about marketing those different products, from it's kind of all rolls into creative too, right? Like, how do you decide
Mm-hmm.
which of those products that you're going to promote, and why did you guys decide to just focus on one or two?
Yeah, well, the quick answer of why we decided to focus on one or two is success seen.
Yep.
The other capabilities that we focused on are use cases that ended up not working in advertising. They just didn't work. We tried,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's important. You have to. Um, but yeah, what it really boils down to for us, we have certain use cases that Clearbit solves for that are very habitual. So the things that you're thinking about all the time as a B2B marketer, things like, helping fix cost per lead
Mm-hmm.
or your conversion rate on page, things that, as a digital marketer, growth marketer, performance marketer, whoever you are, you're kind of like itching to solve every single week, right? You're looking at your on-page conversion rate and you're saying to yourself, like, how am I going to get that up? Just a little bit, squeak through another test, whatever that is.
Yep.
And then we have product offerings that or use cases that we solve for that, someone's going to think about once a quarter, every 6 months, maybe every year. Things like your lead scoring process or your lead routing process or, website personalization, stuff like that, where you're not thinking about it day to day or week to week. You're thinking about that like every 6 months. You're saying, okay, should I look at my lead scoring
Yep.
process or framework today? Or this next quarter, and it's a really big project.
Mm-hmm.
And generally what we've seen is that the more habitual the product, the easier it is to use what you'd consider bottom of funnel advertising
Mm-hmm.
on social platforms or wherever.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you have a product that's solving for conversion rate, I'm just using our products as an example,
Sure.
solving for conversion rate, very easy to use bottom of funnel advertising because someone's thinking about that all the time. Like they're trying to solve that problem and then they pick up their phone, they're looking at their Instagram feed for a break at work, and you're saying, hey, I have a way that you can double your conversion rate. So that's always top of mind. When we're talking about something like lead scoring or lead routing, I'm thinking of that once every 6 months, not every day or every week.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be much harder to actually get someone's engagement on something like a social channel from that.
Right. No, I agreed. I think that's important too, and making sure that you're really focused on whatever that key thing is that's going to be constantly top of mind, and keep repeating that, because as they think about that and each month ends or each quarter closes or wherever often it is, they're seeing your ad that says that same message on how you can help them with whatever that key thing that continues to come up time and time again. Which for you all, I mean, I know that you guys have pushed firmographic targeting on Facebook quite a bit. So, I mean, honestly, that's like just so in my head. I've seen that ad and many variations of it a billion times, but now it's in my head. I know that you guys are known for that. And I know there's other things that Clearbit does, but the point is that I've seen that creative. I've seen it all the time on Instagram, the carousel. I've seen it being told in a story. So now when I think about Clearbit, I'm thinking, okay, hey, these guys must be able to at least help me out with this. And then that starts the sales conversation to our point earlier. And then the salesperson can then obviously evolve that into other different products or other areas that you guys can help them out with.
That's exactly it. And not to say that we don't advertise those non-habitual products. Like we do advertise for them, but it's just in a much different way. It's very much, a top of funnel, more awareness driven approach versus like, hey, get a demo today.
Right.
Because what you really want to do with those, longer, more drawn out problems that you're solving for, the non-habitual pieces, is just make sure you are top of mind when someone goes to solve that problem.
Yep.
If someone's upgrading or changing their lead scoring every 6 months or a year, really what you want someone to say is like, okay, I'm gonna upgrade lead scoring this next quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Clearbit.
Yep.
I remember Clearbit talking about lead scoring. I should probably go and check them out.
Yep. I like
it.
Right.
This was something HubSpot did really well. And so if you think about marketing automation or a marketing automation platform, that's not something that you're buying every week,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or even
Right.
thinking about buying every week. It's
right.
A much longer drawn out process. So instead of doing just straight advertising to get a demo, they built their highly complex content marketing machine.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But marketers are going to HubSpot to learn about marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually when they say, oh, I need a marketing automation platform, right? They go to HubSpot to see, okay, what marketing automation platform should I buy?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, HubSpot's a marketing automation platform. Like
Mm-hmm.
that, definitely need to look into them.
Yep.
Right. So that's kind of the process that I think you need to think about when you're marketing for these longer, more drawn out, complex problems.
Agreed. I want to move to another thing that I think a lot of people are always thinking about, that I know I have conversations with on a weekly basis, which is what creative and content, let's kind of just put those in the same bucket, should I be rotating on? Again, let's kind of keep the conversation, I suppose, around Facebook and LinkedIn, because I know a lot of people that are listening are probably advertising on those two platforms. But there's value prop language, there's pain-based creative that you guys do a lot of, and certainly your retargeting campaigns. There's other top of funnel programs where it's a blog or a guide. Sometimes it's gated, sometimes it's ungated. There's third-party validation. It's G2. It's whatever the review site is, et cetera. There's testimonials. So there's all these different types of creative pieces we can create and drive that to content. But I'd be curious if you could just kind of break down how you guys think about it within, and I don't know if you'd want to break it down into different buckets. Do you guys have a specific strategy for creative that's more top of funnel and prospecting campaigns, and retargeting you do something completely different? But maybe we could kind of break that down and just understand, like, based off of the different content that you guys do have available, how do you guys mix that up across the channels?
Yeah. We do break it down based on top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel.
Yep.
Bottom of funnel being like that, get a demo style advertising more than anything. And sometimes we'll put the case study or something like that in that sort of bucket.
Mm-hmm.
But thinking about top of funnel and middle of funnel, which is really, I think, where we focus a lot of our effort, at least now, we think about it really as like anything that isn't to do directly about Clearbit, top of funnel. Mm-hmm. Anything that has a Clearbit use case as the main kind of factor is middle of funnel. And then everything else is bottom of funnel, anything that's driving to like a main landing page.
Mm-hmm.
And then in regards to like the formats of, what you want to put where, in my opinion, you kind of need to do a little bit of all in each bucket. And really that's because if you think about people in general, everybody consumes information differently. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to consume it differently. And so whether that be, someone who wants to read versus someone who wants to watch video. I'll give you an example actually of my wife. She's not in B2B marketing, but she hates videos. Uh-huh. She hates TikTok. She doesn't watch anything to do with like Instagram Reels, anything like that. She hates it. Yep. She wants to read or she wants to look at a picture, and that is it. Yep. Right. And so you think about that behavior versus how many people are now, huge TikTok, fans and addicted.
TikTok's gone wild. I don't know what's going on. LinkedIn has picked up TikTok, and we all need accounts now and are missing out. So anyway,
you think about her. She's the exact same as someone who's buying B2B software. She just works in a different field, right? We're all people, and she hates consuming video. I like video. Other people like video, but you really need to have like all of the different formats for your different funnels. And I know that's a horrible answer because, of course, like everyone's resource constrained. Sure. Everyone's going to say like, "Oh, Colin, I can't do that." Like, tell me the one that works,
the one that drives all the pipeline of revenue. Which one is that? Yeah.
Exactly. But unfortunately, that's my answer.
Yep.
I will say that there are easier ways to get to having a lot of content or a lot of different formats of that content.
Mm-hmm.
One, I think you're probably doing this a little bit yourself, using this podcast as a way to
Mm-hmm.
get a bunch of insight and then go and write about it.
Sure.
Right. It's
Mm-hmm.
giving you the information to go and write about it so that you can have the written version, you have the audio version,
Yep.
you have the video version, you have everything that you need.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Very similar. I think, I think everybody should generally be doing that. We use our webinar program for that a lot. So we're doing webinars. All of those conversations go into blog posts. They go into, social posts. They go into snippets,
Mm-hmm.
all the different stuff.
Yeah.
And then similar with advertising, I think, a lot of the ways that we do creative will start with a story that's, maybe carouseled out. So we'll have a 3 to 5 image carousel, and we have the highlights that we want to talk through in each image.
Mm-hmm.
And then, take that and just turn that into a script that you can, just talk to a camera about. Right.
Yep.
And that works really well. Or if you're doing an event with someone, do a little quick video like this, where
Mm-hmm.
it's just, hey, what are we going to talk about, Jonathan?
Yep.
We're going to talk about creative today. And that, that's it. It's really easy. It's very quick. We do it in 30 minutes, an hour.
Yep.
And it's done and it's out the door and it's a new format. Right.
Yep. Well, let me come back to what you said. So you said tofu, mofu, and bofu. So the top funnel, middle funnel, and bottom funnel. So that's the way you break down content. So you said, I think you said it well, which is interesting. So anything that isn't directly to do with Clearbit would be the top of the funnel. So that would be for you, I guess, blogs, various guides, maybe even webinars, things like that maybe aren't directly associated with Clearbit, the product, but you guys are answering questions, pain points, problems, things that people are curious learning
valuable
more about.
For B2B marketers.
Right.
That's exactly it. Yeah. Anything to do with B2B marketing in general, I'd say.
Got it. And then so just maybe even to combine, because middle funnel and bottom funnel to me kind of end up getting a little bit merged together, and to really separate them out into like different stages is kind of tough in my opinion. But
I think the big difference for us is like where are they going in middle funnel versus bottom of funnel. If you're trying to send them to a landing page where they're gonna, the primary action is to get a demo, we're gonna just consider that bottom of funnel basically. But if you're sending them to a white paper or like an ebook that's a use case guide of how to use Clearbit to solve the problem or what have you, that's really what we're considering middle funnel.
Exactly. Got it. So a lot of your product marketing and some of the carousels and stories that you guys tell in terms of like, hey, here's a pain, or firmographic targeting for Facebook, clearly that would not be considered top of funnel. So if folks are thinking about using product marketing, I would even call that, or value-based types of creative where you're driving it to usually a feature page on your website, that would be more reserved for certainly retargeting audiences, because I know I get a lot of your retargeting ads to that. And then potentially more like middle, bottom of the funnel type activities where it's like, I've already kind of heard of Clearbit. I might have seen some other things from them. So here's a little bit about actually what we do, right? Is that accurate?
Yeah, and we'll even do some of that like net new type of advertising in the middle of funnel. And honestly, for some products, like I mentioned, in bottom of funnel, but they're those ones where we know that people are thinking about them often. Again, we're following up with or we're pushing the value prop specifically. I want to increase conversion rate. You can still send to a landing page with that, and you can still try and drive to a demo request. But if you're talking about some complex product or complex pain or problem that they're trying to solve, you can't really do it as easily, right?
Yeah, I agree. And I think the big thing too that I see a lot of is I think there's almost too much obsession for a lot of B2B SaaS brands to drive so much top of funnel content, and they actually forget to kind of say what you do and what you're solving and what the value prop really is. It's like all the focus is on driving email addresses through these channels. And it doesn't matter whether it's retargeting or not. We need more email addresses to fuel our email nurtures, to lead score them, and then to MQL them and send them to sales, right? And it's like, hey, some of that's important, and we can get into actually gated, ungated, because I know you guys do a little bit of both. You're not completely committed, but I know I've seen a little bit of both, so we can talk about that in a second. But I think what you said is so key, and making sure that people have a takeaway of what Clearbit actually does, and not just like, hey, Clearbit's offering up all this valuable content, right? Their blog's great. I love that webinar that Colin did last week or whatever. All those things are helpful, but like, what do they do again? And like, that's where I think that advertising needs to come into play and make sure that people understand what you do so that they can remember and think about that and say, well, not only do they add a lot of value, but now I also know what they do, which is really important.
Yeah. And it's funny because we actually see some of our better metrics in the middle of funnel content that we produce more than even the top of funnel. So, depending on the product again, or the value prop that you're offering up, metrics can change between funnel stages. You don't have to think of like middle or bottom
Right.
of the funnel is like very much, much more expensive than top of the funnel. It's going to change based on who you're targeting and who you're trying to talk to and what value prop you're offering up. So
yeah, totally agreed. Totally agreed. Well, so let's kind of chat about it. I know everyone always loves to talk about gated and ungated and argue about it all day on LinkedIn. But I think
yeah.
everyone's always talking about it. And I think there's also just a lot of momentum that you'll see on LinkedIn and other social media sites of just ungate everything. And we really just want content consumption. We don't want emails, right? So there's a lot of language around that. I'm certainly a contributor to that and a little bit more a fan of, increasing content consumption and not worrying about trying to drive things. But I know you guys take kind of a balanced approach from what I remember and just kind of seeing what you guys
Yep.
do. But what's Clearbit's kind of perspective on the whole thing? Like, is gated dead? Should we all move to ungating everything and just turn it off? Like it's that easy? Or like, what's your kind of thought process around it?
Yeah, I don't think gated's dead. I don't think it's going to go away. Unfortunately, like, sales is still sales and it's a human connection. I think that kind of the position that we take internally is really like, anything that is very top of funnel or not about Clearbit, like, let's just ungate that. We just want people to be better marketers.
Yep.
We generally are gating anything that's directly about Clearbit. So some of that MoFu stuff that we were talking about, use case guides, those sorts of things. And then bottom of funnel, of course, is demo requests. So of course you have to grab an email out of that.
Yep.
I think that the difference that we take is more in our BDR, SDR follow up. It is not sales aggressive. It is more educational and it's not a marketing email. Like we're not automating that. It's personalized. And real people are behind the scenes, pressing the buttons,
Yep.
And talking to you. But it's not like, hey, get on a demo with me right now. It's like, hey, you were checking out some content about form shortening. Just wanted to follow up with, a couple tidbits about that.
Yeah, like, are you interested in learning more? It's more a soft sell. It's just like, hey,
it's a soft sell.
Here's some other content you might find valuable. I know you looked at this. If you do have any questions, reach out, that type of thing. So it's not like aggressive. You're not putting into some crazy sequence of 20 touches from a sales rep saying, are you ready for the meeting? Are you ready for the meeting?
Yeah. And I will say, like, I don't know. It could be just because of the market we're in. Of course, we're marketing to other B2B marketers. So maybe they're more willing to submit forms for stuff. But we see high conversion rates on those pages. It's not like we're seeing a 2% conversion rate or something. A lot of our content sees in the 20s.
Wow.
Right.
That's great.
And so, it's not like we're struggling with that necessarily. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. All right, well, let's kind of change direction. So you actually touched on something in terms of like how you measure success of creative. And let's go back to creative. You talked about content, but I think just looking at creative pieces, do you guys break that down? I mean, a lot of people will traditionally look at, hey, what's the click-through rate of this particular piece of creative? If it's higher, that means that it must have resonated more and there was more engagement. Or do you think there's cases where creative can be used in different formats as well? Of course, this also very much depends on the objectives you're choosing in channel as well, because that's also going to optimize for different types of people that are on Facebook and LinkedIn. But how do you think about like measuring? Like, do you guys have an Excel spreadsheet with all the creative and you're like, all right, well, these were the best performing creative, let's run those some more? Or is it not that technical and you guys just kind of like, hey, this is the general message we want to go for again, let's run this type of thing? Like, how do you guys think about it?
We are looking at the like per ad or per creative click-through rates and costs and all of that. We're not comparing up against every single thing that we run, but we are comparing against each different type of offer. So like webinars as an example, we've done, I don't know, 20 in the past, I don't know, 6 or 8 months. And we're comparing across each webinar. Like, okay, how does the creative here perform? How does it perform there? What do we think the reasoning is? And we'll look at things like click-through rate or cost per click or anything like that. But we'll also look a little bit deeper, more just a qualified lead. We're not measuring like per creative through all the way to pipeline or to close one. There's just not enough volume. You can't do it. But to qualified lead, sure, right? We'll definitely look at that to see, okay, did this value prop resonate or did that one? Did a video work better for this content type or did a carousel or did it a static image, right? and again, mostly across content types. And then we're doing that just as a, an ongoing weekly basis with the agency we're working with. They're generally pulling that insight for us.
Exactly.
So it's not like a big spreadsheet complicated thing, but we definitely are monitoring and looking at it. And I think honestly, like that's probably the best way to do it. It's less overwhelming. Yeah. And I do think that there are a lot of cases where you're scrutinizing so deeply a specific thing that you overthink it. And then, that's not good either. It's just as bad as not looking at it at all.
Right. Probably. No, I think you have to look at it. And I think, my perspective on it is that, I mean, listen, like we all know that the B2B buying journey is not linear, right? So I think the tough thing about doing a little bit of what you said, again, not saying that you should not do that, but the tough thing is to say one piece of creative is what drove this lead, and trying to understand that is not the right way to look about it. It's understanding that this creative ultimately maybe drove the conversion. That's interesting. And the CTR and the CTR has been higher on this piece of creative over another one. But it's saying that, like, listen, that person has seen multiple different pieces of advertisements from whether it be Facebook, LinkedIn, and others, right? They might have gone to search, review sites, and tons of different areas, right? And they've just now decided this last piece of content, which whether it was the creative or not, is that you've hit them enough times now, or they've realized that they really need whatever you have to say, hey, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and convert on this. And I'm actually going to, go to talk to sales or whoever. So I think that that's important. I don't know what your perspective, you have a different one is, but I just think that it's very challenging to isolate. And I agree with your point on trying to drive creative, and even some tools are now like driving campaigns to specific pipeline and revenue. And I think it's interesting and you can do that. But again, it's not the way that people buy. I mean, it's not like I just set up this one campaign and then all of a sudden just this one campaign is what drove all this pipeline of revenue. So now let's just do more of this one campaign. I think you got to look at it a little more holistically and say, listen, like we know that multiple campaigns are impacting these people. We also know that, listen, like advertising, if we're targeting the right people, we're touching the same people that hopefully sales is touching, right? So you got sales too to also consider, the outbound emails are going out, they're doing all their prospecting. So we're all got the same goal, but to not go off on too much of a rant and give you a second to chime in on it. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, do you agree? Do you kind of think it's just kind of complex, but you still got to, keep an eye on it?
No, I agree. And that's why, like, I think when you're looking at your program performance as a whole, you can't look at the individual, right? You have to really look at the holistic performance of the program. And then, yes, you can dig down into specific campaigns or specific programs, but you really do need to look at that top level view. Yeah. And then for specific types of advertising or types of content or things that you're promoting, specifically around like the ungated pieces or awareness, whatever you consider awareness for your business. You do have to remember that, yes, that's maybe not driving a conversion and that's not what's going to get, the attribution in your CRM, but it's probably just as important. It's just very, very hard to measure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you really have to think about it that way. And then, I think you just have to be very, very specific on how you're measuring things or the decision of how to measure things. So for us, like we very much say awareness, not looking at conversions. We're doing awareness for a reason. We know, of course, Clearbit advertising is a tool that lets us know who we're targeting on, especially on Facebook and LinkedIn and Google. So we can actually say, like, we know we're targeting the right people. We know that this content's getting in front of the right people, or this video is being watched by the right people. Let's continue that, because no doubt that is having an impact on our other advertising or on our organic results or on anything down funnel.
Yep. No, I totally agree. Well, let's end it on one question. This may be a shorter one, but maybe we can kind of broaden it out. But everyone's always thinking about rotating creative. I know for you all, we just chatted about this earlier. Sometimes it's just when you get around to it, to put some of your words in your mouth. Maybe we can break that down a little bit. But I also think that another element for us, especially, is it depends on how much money you're spending on these channels. If you've got a smaller budget, you're not going to have as much money to play around with having multiple different campaigns and different creative types, et cetera. So you're not going to be able to do all that testing. So you're going to have to think about it, a little bit smaller scale on a smaller budget, whereas a big budget on either Facebook or LinkedIn, you can really start having a lot of different options with regards to creative. You can maybe break down those campaigns or target audiences into other groups, et cetera. So curious, like, how do you guys think about that with respect to rotation as it relates to ad spend? Do you at all? Or to your point earlier, is it just more like, hey, listen, we're a small team. We're just trying to get it done when we can. And that's kind of how you look at it.
Yeah, from the actual rotation and kind of refreshing creative, yeah, we're not so process driven on it. We keep a list of everything that's running. We monitor performance. If it's hitting high frequency or degrading a lot, then we'll start to think about refreshing and getting that new type of asset live. We are definitely not creating hundreds of versions, hundreds of different colors for the same ad creative or anything like that.
Sure.
We generally, when we say refresh, we're going to do 1 to 2, 3 new ads, maybe.
Yep.
Something like a new static image design, a new carousel, maybe a video if it's relevant, but that's it. And then we're taking offline everything that we were doing before and putting those back up. Just really getting something new in market. It doesn't have to be a ton of different things at once. Just something new.
That's actually interesting. I actually now have a follow up on that in terms of like testing creative and whatnot. So you mentioned like it's not like we're just doing a bunch of different colors. Like today's purple, today's going to be red, and then tomorrow's going to be blue, right? It sounds like in terms of testing creative, it's really changing up the whole entire message or piece of content that's more important. So you're not testing on colors and designs as much as you're testing on, all right, here's some new piece of copy or a new piece of content that we want to push out, and let's see how well that's received, and then judging the success against that versus getting endlessly caught up in like, well, let's put the box over here, or make it grow gradient, or make it this color, that color. Is that right?
Yeah, we're not really testing on colors or anything like that. I will say, like, we will notice or take note of if specific things are working better, like maybe dark background, light background, that sort of thing.
Right.
But no, we're not saying like, okay, purple versus green.
Yeah.
And actually, the approach we take to design, and I'm not going to take credit for this because it's our designer, Cosmin. He's really thinking about a lot of our programs in seasons, and so he'll come up with a design for webinars as an example for maybe the next quarter, and then that'll be the design that we're using for the quarter, and then we're going to start fresh after 3 months and come up with a new design, and it's just giving us like some variation. Right. And it's not the same template over and over. It might be very similar content inside of that design, inside of that image, but the actual design of it is changing as we go. So nothing major there. I will say, like, we do a lot of variation in color, in template design, etc. in our advertising and our creative. It is not sticking to the brand color, period.
Right.
If you go look at our assets, we go from, I don't know, white and pink all the way to black and green, and it doesn't matter. It's just we want to have nice looking stuff and get it out the door, and it doesn't have to be Clearbit brand colors blue. It does not have to be blue. Or
I think that probably helps, given the amount of people that have blue as their colors, which is why we actually started to use pink a little bit more, which is one of our accent colors on our website. So we kind of switched it up, because it's like funny when you go down the news feed on LinkedIn, it's like, oh my God, this thing is just covered in blue. I guess everyone's favorite color is blue.
I think it was at the end of 2020, we were doing a lot of new advertising, and one of our rules was no blue.
I love it.
It could not be blue in any of our assets that we created, because it's just, I mean, you want to look like everybody else on social, use blue. Pretty much.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's important because there's something to say about, and I'm not, maybe I'm not the world's like best brand colors strategist in terms of things like that. But I mean, these channels like LinkedIn and Facebook operate as stimulus driven channels. So we first have to attract someone's attention and get them to stop, right? And just take a moment and consume the message. And if you've got the same color as everyone else, then clearly it's going to be hard to stand out. Or if you've got the same repeating color every single time, then there's going to kind of be just ad fatigue. Like, I kind of seen this before. I maybe know these guys, et cetera. So just switching it up and keeping it, a little bit more variety is going to make people like, oh, well, what's that? Like yellow? I mean, there's no yellow in my newsfeed, for example. Or there's no this. I mean, like no one's thinking about that, right? Consciously, but you're still stopping because it's just different. So.
Yep. Exactly that. You might, I stop and read ads all the time just because they catch my attention. I look at it, I'm like, I don't want to do this. And then move on, but I read it. And once in a while it's going to catch me, and I'm actually going to click on the ad. So it really is just breaking the pattern of what you are seeing generally on the platform, and then trying to get that engagement.
Love it, man. Well, cool. Well, I guess we can wrap here. If people want to follow, get in touch with you or Clearbit, what's the best way to do that? LinkedIn, I assume, is kind of best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, LinkedIn, Colin White, head of demand gen at Clearbit. So
love it.
Hit me up. And of course, Clearbit.com.
Clearbit.com. Cool, man. Well, then we'll do this another time, hopefully soon. And thanks for joining again.
All right, man.
Cool.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Talk later.